So tonight in this video, we're going to talk about music ministry. It is a subject that I've been requested a few members of the church and a few people on social media on my Facebook. They asked about music ministry, how to get into it, things you're looking or things you may need to get into music ministry. And I know when most people talk about music ministry, we're talking about gear or what type of program they want to talk about the hardware and all that other stuff. And we're not going to talk about the hardware tonight. We're going to get into that a little bit later in this video. But tonight we're going to go into a four must-haves that you need to really have if you're looking to get into music ministry. Because it's not a lot of times it's not about how you play. Because there are a lot of guys that are really nice on the keys and they're really good playing instruments and stuff, but they're not good as far as working with people or that type of thing. So, I'm going to give you the four things you need to be successful in music ministry. And maybe some people are successful without all that, but I'm telling you that if you're not doing these four things, you're probably developing a bad reputation somewhere. First, I want to get into my experience. I have been in music ministry 10 years. Musically, I am a late bloomer to the keys. I started seriously playing keys around 10 years ago when I was around 34 years old, 33 years old. This would be year 10 going on 11 for me in music ministry. I'm playing for the second church I've been supported at. So I have a lot of experience. The church that I play at has about 200 to 300 members on a given Sunday there. And so and I'm part of a team here. When I first started, I was playing at a small church with maybe 20, 30 members. And here I'm a part of it. It was just me and a drummer. And here is me, an organ player, another keys player, and a drummer, and a horn player. And every now and then I collaborate with a bass guitarist. So it's a few more musicians at the church I play at now. A different budget, things of that nature. If you hear my wife in the background, please forgive us, or the cats, or whatever. So the first must-have, if you're going to be in church ministry, the first must-have is being professional. You must be professional. You must have a professional appearance. Because once again, this is not just talking about. We're not talking about music gigs, playing out in the club, playing on stages and things of that nature. We're talking about you're in the church. Now, I know a lot of churches, when you go in, you may see the musician there wearing jeans and a turtleneck or something like that. And, that's kind of a new school thing. Maybe the drummer is in there with some ripped jeans and stuff. But where I'm at, I play for a church, it's apostolic. No, you got to come in there with some slacks, with a collared shirt. You got to be professional. Another thing about being professional is being on time, being there early, first one in, last one out, or at least being there before the rehearsal or before service. If you have an 11 o'clock service and you're consistently showing up at 11:15, it's not just that you're showing disrespect to the time that the music ministry, the praise team leaders, and the ministers who are trying to start service. You're also showing disrespect to, once again, that's a ministry. We're talking about God here. And so if you're showing up late to rehearsals and showing up late to, especially if you're one of the musicians that actually teach the parts, if you're one of the ones that actually direct the choir, that really puts a lot of people in a bind if you have an issue being on time. Because once again, a lot of people, especially when we're talking about service, we're talking about ministering, we're talking about growing, being on time, first one in, last one out. That's one of the things as musicians, it comes with the territory. They're having a service, a later service, afternoon service, 4 o'clock. Pastor's going to preach somewhere. He needs you to bring the praise team, back him up. These are things, and sometimes these different situations, depending on your agreement, because we're not talking about getting paid yet. We're talking about just stepping in the door, ministering with music. So, because a lot of ministers are volunteers, they haven't been supported yet, they haven't been paid yet. But if you're the one that works with the praise team, you're the musician for this church, And the church is doing things, they need you to be there on time or at least early so that you can get there, make sure the sound level is good, make sure the microphones are right, make sure that the pads are padding, make sure you and the drummer know what music you guys are doing and how you're going to do it. I know some musicians, they run click tracks and so they got to bring a laptop and bring the equipment in to set up. And all that stuff means that you got to be there on time. You know, you got to be there setting things up. You got to make sure that it's good to go before, the first hallelujah starts, before they bring the welcome, before they start devotion. You need to be in place. And sometimes certain, praise teams, they rehearse before service. Or so being on time and being professional with that professional appearance, making sure that you're not just coming in the house of God any kind of way. That's very important. I know some places it's sliding. We was at a place, not for this name place or nothing, but we was in a afternoon or evening service on a Tuesday night where multiple churches were there. And so, yeah, different churches have different dress codes. But for the most part, you just want to make sure that you're abiding by the rules of the house. But most importantly, you giving that respect to him above. Second of all, the second thing you need is being trustworthy. If you, especially if you're being supported, if you say you're going to do something, then you need to do it. If you say I'm going to be here, if they come to you and say, hey, we need you to play for this program, or this family's having a funeral, especially, even before there's money on the table, because that always changes. But if you say you're going to do something, it's very important that you do it. And then if you're going to a church and you're, letting somebody know you play and they're trying to figure out where to put you, you need to be honest about where your skill level is. A lot of musicians come into a church and it's almost like a musical chair situation, trying to see who's going to get on the organ, who's going to get on keys, and who got the experience. Sometimes when you're coming in, especially to a new church, you need to be honest with what you can and can't do. So when you are sitting down with a minister and you're saying, hey, this is where I can and can't play at, this is where I can and can't be at, this is my availability, be honest with it. You don't have to, try to put on a front like you're Michael B. Real or you're Kirk Franklin when that's not you. And a lot of churches, like if you're not, we all grow. When I was at a church, I was at, my first church I was supported at. They understood that I was learning, kind of still coming in, kind of, still brand new to music ministry. And I was still supported. And I grew with them. I was there for 5 years or 4 years. And we always had a good agreement there. They knew I was learning and they knew I was coming along. But even with that, they saw the growth. I wasn't playing the same in year one that I was in year 2 and 3. And then on top of that, I was faithful. I was there on time. I was there, early when they needed to rehearse. I was working with the praise team and just working with anybody who wanted to play. We had different drummers. I would meet them, scope them out, or bring them to my house to rehearse. All that stuff is things that, once again, you have to be honest with a church when you're coming in and you letting them know this is when I can and can't be there. These are the programs I can and can't play. And this is the skill level I'm putting on the table. If you can't play in all keys, be honest. I can't play churchy in all keys, And a lot of times they'll work with it. If you're a D flat guy or an E flat guy, the praise team will understand that because at the end of the day, they just want to sound good on Sunday. And, different levels to how many musicians have come play somewhere and why and stuff like that. So you just want to be open and honest when you take on a church, especially, travel and everything else being involved. The third thing, this is the biggest thing ever. It's called integrity. Musicians in church have a very bad reputation of sleeping with the church members, sleeping with different choir members, and showing up any kind of way, or, you know, it's just a very bad situation with the integrity that you come in and you essentially say it's one thing and it could be something else. And the thing is, I just have a situation where, I'm married to the choir director at the church I'm at now, so I'm good now. But every other church that I've ever played for, even when I wasn't supported, when I was volunteering, I just didn't mess around with the different members at the church, or especially, lady ministers, that type of situation, because you don't want that situation getting out of hand. You don't want that coming back on you. It can be a bad situation. So you really don't want to do that. And then the second part of being having integrity is, if you have a bad experience with a church, like they said they was gonna pay you, they didn't, and I had to learn this the hard way myself. If they feel some kind of way about you, or whatever the situation is, you don't want to get into a habit of trashing other churches, especially their leadership and stuff like that, because everybody know people, especially if you operate in a small town. Like I live in St. Louis. It's a decent sized city, but a lot of the musicians here know each other. A lot of the pastors and preachers here know each other. So when you get to talking about certain ministers and certain pastors and stuff like that, people will be looking at you a certain kind of way, like, oh, this person said something off about Bishop so and so or something. If somebody play you or that type of situation, you just have to let God handle it. And yeah, you let somebody know, or if you are one of these musicians that have to be supported to play at a church, put it down up front. And if they ain't supporting you, then don't do it. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be in that situation where you're speaking on someone, you putting your mouth on God's people. I'm just saying, if something happen, a bad business come down or whatever, just do you yourself a favor, walk away. Don't go on social media talking about certain people, trashing certain people. Leave it alone. Pray for them and leave it alone, because man, stuff can get bad really quickly. Number 4 on the list, which is it's still very important. It's not as important number 3, but still important. You have to be willing to learn and work with other musicians. You know, you may be at a church where it's several musicians, and certain people have certain singers sing a certain way. Your style may not be what they like, type of situation, or the drummer may need you here or there. You have to be willing to learn and move and coordinate with the other musicians there. Sometimes it does include changing your style up. Maybe you have to turn down a little bit because you got an organ player that's got a certain way of playing. Maybe which drummers always play loud, so you got to turn up and make sure that he's on time with you. Maybe this song has a good downbeat. Maybe this particular praise team don't do intros and you do, you know. But or maybe everybody's at a different skill level, and the person you're playing with can't play where you at. So you have to kind of work with them to play the song the best y'all can, because you don't want to be playing over somebody's head during the service. A lot of times people don't understand that it's teamwork. You know, you don't want to be one of those musicians that's playing licks and runs over someone and they're singing a solo. you know, Sometimes, and you don't want to be that musician that is, you got a secret rivalry with the organ player or something like that going on. You have to be able to collaborate with other musicians, especially say if you come to a service and everybody's kind of taking turns, different churches are coming up and stuff like that. Take that opportunity to learn. Take that opportunity, you're playing Lord Your Mighty this way, they play it that way. It gives you another way to kind of come in. Oh, I can kind of add that style, or I can kind of learn these chords that they're doing. Take those times to really see how these other musicians are playing, because everybody has different skill levels. I'll be the first one to say The organ player at our church, he's a league ahead of me, and I learned so much having a guy over me, and it's not saying that, oh man, I'm trash or nothing like that. No, but I take every opportunity I can to have him over at the house to learn as much as I can, even if that, how many musicians can say that they, especially in the gospel music scene, how many times do you get to a situation where other gospel musicians ain't really trying to show you a whole lot or whatever? So you really have to take every opportunity you can when you have a willing person that wants to sit in front of you and show you something, or when somebody plays something and you get it. Take every single opportunity you can to learn. Learn. I'm 44 years old. I'm learning. Every day I learn. I'm learning riffs and runs now. I got good chords now. Now I'm trying to learn the riffs and runs and playing up and down the keyboard. So it's some of those things that is always a growth process. I'll be 60, 70 years old still learning something new on the keyboard. You never know everything on the piano. I'm not Mozart. I'm not Robert Glasper. I'm not all these other gospel musicians, these greats. I'm not one of them, but I do what I can. But those are just the main must-haves you need to have before we get into what kind of gear you need to have. Before we get into what kind of anything, before we get into all that fancy stuff, you need to run Ableton. You need to get the click tracks from C-Dub, whatever. No, you need to be on time. You need to be professional. You need to be trustworthy. Do what you say you're going to do. Be honest about the skill level when you come in, even if you're being paid. You need to have integrity. You can't go sleeping with all the altos and sopranos. Um, don't trash talk other churches. Please don't trash talk other churches. And then number four, be willing to learn anytime you get the chance. Anytime you get the chance. That's this segment. I'm gonna do a quick segment on pretty much if you're getting geared, what kind of connectivity you need on the gear you're using, especially if you're a traveling worship musician. So I'm gonna go over that in just a minute. All right, so here's our list of what you need if you're a traveling worship musician. If this is something you do, of course, you're going to need an extension cord because you don't know how far they may need you away from the gear or from the wall. So, an extension cord, especially one with multiple inputs, because you might be running a laptop or a synthesizer with your keyboard, is something that's going to be needed. The next thing you need is you want to get a keyboard that has 5-pin MIDI. We know that everybody runs computers and laptops, but what happens when the church you're playing at has a synthesizer or they already have, say, a controller that you're using, but you still want to use your sounds? You got a lot of sounds here that's in your keyboard that you're using. So, of course, you want to have something that has MIDI in and out. This way, when you're a traveling musician, you're not worried about where your sounds are or anything else. You already know. Hey, it's here. Some musicians, they play with a computer and a thumb drive. Hey, then you need a USB connector. You need a thumb drive for your sounds. That works. And if you don't use a thumb drive, use a laptop, then hey, you need this printer cable MIDI here. This is USB B. Most MIDI controllers have that. This is a Yamaha MX49, so it does work. It doubles as a MIDI controller. So this is an absolute necessity if you're a traveling musician, and you need those. The second thing you need to have is XLR cables for your line out and line your balance cables for your line out inputs. You want to make sure that you're buying something that has left and right outs because the balance out just has a better sound. And most churches or most bigger churches are going to have balance level outputs that you're going to be plugging into, especially if they don't have a keyboard. Because a lot of churches, they save money by running tracks, running clicks, and you know this way they don't have to spend a bunch of money on a musician. So if you're traveling through doing worship and in that situation, you definitely want to have a keyboard that can hook into their PA system, and you're good to go from there. Of course, you know special connection to something with a pitch bend and mod wheel on there. I can't tell you these two things here. You know, if you're buying a MIDI controller that has the sliders, you'll see what kind of frustration you'll come across with that. You want to have something with a pitch bend and mod wheel, especially if you run synthesizers, especially if you run the organ from the keyboard. You need the mod wheel. You need the pitch bend. Um, so that's pretty much, you know, and there are several keyboards that fit the mold on this, that have the 5 pin, that have the USB connector, and that have the line in and line outs. But when you're looking at the back of a keyboard and they don't have these things, especially if you're paying like over $1,000 for them, you need to really watch out for that, especially if you intend on using this keyboard as a traveling musician. All right, we are back. Um, let's change this over a little bit. So I hope that really helps a lot of people when they're trying to get into music ministry, trying to see what it takes, and because once again, it's not about how much you get paid or trying to get paid, because once again, you wouldn't be looking to get into church ministry if you didn't know how to play, you know, and that's the main thing. But beyond learning how to play, once again, you just want to be have that professionality, have that trustworthiness, integrity, and just willingness to learn and get better. Of course, yeah, the gear is a little bit of a situation, but if you know how to play, you can play on anything. You know, you're going to be at churches where sometimes it just might have a real regular piano, an acoustic upright somewhere, or you know. And the good thing is just being flexible, being able to play on anything and learn anything that you have to come across. So hopefully it helps somebody. Hopefully it blesses someone. I know I pulled the Yamaha MX-49 out, so we will do a review on that down the line. And if this is the type of content people want to learn, as far as like if you want to see us do more talks or more um, needs and must haves to do music ministry, more content on music ministry, I can definitely do that. You know, so just leave a positive comment or let us know how you feel about that, and you know, we could definitely get into that. I think I'm being kind of pushed in that direction to kind of move into that because that's primarily what I do. So, any comments, questions, and concerns, they're all welcome. Likes, comments, subscribers, hey, send them all our way. And once again, God bless everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.